What's up, everybody? And today we're checking out US war plan targets Iran's nuclear site. This is by a new YouTube channel that we've not checked out yet because it's fresh out the box. This is Cappy Army. Now, you may not know this YouTube channel, but you certainly will know Chris, the face of this YouTube channel. He has been the face of Task and Purpose for many years now, which, as you know on this channel, we watched that channel for a very long time. And I think a lot of other people thought that Chris owned that YouTube channel and did it all himself, but I guess that's not the case. It was an actual kind of company that was inevitably sold to a bigger company, and Chris decided to leave and make his own YouTube channel, which I think is great because he is unreal at this. He's absolutely unreal at this. And yeah, I mean, this. Let me show you real quick. His channel is brand new. He's only got one video up. That is why he left Task and Purpose, which gets into the details. I'm not going to get into that. And then this one that we're going to watch right now, which is the first one in the genre that he wants to touch on, right? This military news genre that he's obviously incredibly talented at. And so I feel like, yes, we're going to break this down. We're going to watch it. We've been talking about Iran and what's going over there, so it's very prevalent to what we're doing here on this channel. But at the same time, I feel like as a military community, it is important to bolster someone like this. And so the more I can support him, which there will be a link down below to Cappy Army's YouTube channel, the better for everyone, right? The more we can support individuals like this who are fantastic at getting unbiased, phenomenal military information and current affairs out to everyone, it's just going to benefit us all, isn't it? So please go over to Cappy Army, give it a subscribe, like, comment, all the stuff that helps that mysterious YouTube algorithm. Go and do it for Chris. He deserves it. He's phenomenal. Anyway, before we get started, check out Chug, the YouTube channel sponsor. This thing's phenomenal. If you want to look an absolute legend while drinking your drink, you can get them 10% off, link down below. Handmade here in the UK with sustainable materials by a small business. They're honestly phenomenal. They really are. I highly recommend that you check them out. Also, if you didn't know, I started my own business, Morale, which is a mushroom-based drink with cordyceps, lion's mane, L-theanine, caffeine, and beta-glucans. If you love the outdoors like me, you're going to want to check out Morale because not only was it successful on Kickstarter, raising over £18,000, but we have a strong ethos about using the profits to get people and the next generation of kids outside because, my God, they need to get outside. Go check out Morale. Link down below to everything. Other than that, let's shut up. Let's pull this up. Cappy video, Chris's first proper video. I'm excited for this. I'm super excited for this. You know, his ability to talk about this information is profound, and he's very talented. And so for him to have his own YouTube channel now, which I thought Task and Purpose was, it just gets me very excited. So Chris, if you're watching this, firstly, congratulations on your first video, and secondly, keep up the good work, mate, because you're really good at it. And it's only benefit in the world, this type of content.
The American war plan to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities starts in an unlikely place 3,000 miles away on this tiny speck of an island in the Indian Ocean
Diego
called
Garcia.
Diego Garcia.
He's already got great animations to say that his channel's brand new. It's got some good stuff going on here. This is the Diego Garcia is where the bombers are right now. There's 7 of them there.
It's a little-known base that's been used in every major armed conflict in the Middle East since the 1980s, proving that no matter when you were born, you're right on time to fight in the Middle East.
I'm actually pretty sure Diego Garcia is owned by the British and he's rented to the US military. I think. I might be wrong. I might be thinking of a different one, but I'm pretty sure it is, which is very interesting, which means indirectly the British are coordinating, helping with America in this fight, which, I mean, it was inevitable anyway. As far as we're aware, we've just sent out our own aircraft carrier into that area. So it's obvious that whatever the US does, Britain's always there next to him, like a little bulldog round the corner being like, we'll help him, we'll help him.
This U.S. base at Diego Garcia is located just south of the equator, and it's one of the most remote islands on the entire planet. This allows bombers to safely launch long-range missions into the Persian Gulf, East Africa, and even Southeast Asia. And that's why during the initial warning order phase of the war, bombs, missiles, fuel, and cargo aircraft are surged into the theater over the course of a month. And this could explain why, for the first time in over 4 years, the U.S. military just deployed B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia in early April 2025.
We're seeing 6 there, but I could have sworn someone quoted 7 of them. I could be wrong.
It's like my old squad leader used to always say, what could possibly go wrong? According to satellite imagery, there are currently 6 bombers on the runway, which is about 30% of the entire fleet in one location. That's $12 billion worth of American force within just 10 square miles.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of firepower right there, isn't it? But again, like I said, I heard someone told me that there's 7 there. Again, we're talking 6 or 7 bombers. I mean, come on, we're picking at nothing here, aren't we? Like, that's an unbelievable amount of stuff already, isn't it?
And the crazy thing is, we already know this war plan has existed for nearly 2 decades, because the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, publicly revealed it back in 2015, which means that this plan has just been sitting on a shelf somewhere in the annals of the Pentagon collecting dust, tempting every general since then with hard, sensual eye contact. Now,
It's been sat in the same drawer as all that UFO stuff. That's where it is.
now the U.S. government has resurrected the plan once again by giving Iran a deadline of less than 2 months to reach a diplomatic agreement on their nuclear program, or else. And if I put on my regular infantry thinking cap, we can see that this is all interconnected. Iran is funding Houthi terrorists who are bombing shipping lanes in the Red Sea, destabilizing the whole region and the world's economy. While the Houthis say that they're doing this in solidarity with the Palestinians who are getting bombed by Israel with, you guessed it, U.S. support. You guys, it's a perpetual conflict machine. It's the geopolitical equivalent of the snake eating its own tail. And that's why I think it's important for us to analyze this air campaign against Iran's nuclear sites. What tactics would the U.S. use in an attempt to destroy these facilities? What would the cost be? And for the love of God, is there a diplomatic solution that we could use to avoid all of this destructive possibility of war altogether? I'm your everyday infantryman, Chris Cappy. Let's find out. Wait a second.
Whoa, look at that intro. Look at this animation. Chris, what are you doing there, mate?
War altogether.
Look at this.
I'm your everyday infantryman, Chris Cappy. Let's find out. Wait a second.
Mate, get me in touch with the person that did that for you. I want an intro like that. That's sick. That's sick. Anyway, talking about what he's talking about, I feel like it just feels like an inevitability that before you know it, we're going to get the headline, U.S. troops enter Iran. We just know it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. It just feels inevitable, doesn't it? It's just rinse and repeat. Same story on loop. U.S. bombs Middle East. Middle East attacks unnecessarily. US bombs Middle East. It's like a cycle. It's almost as if, like, yeah, we're looking at the clock now. It's been a while. We should probably do it again.
Second, how crazy is it that you can just Google satellite images of the location of some of America's most valuable stealth bombers?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the kind of information you could Google about a regular person? I searched myself and all kinds of personal information came up, like my address, phone number, and other intel that
Is this an
foreign
ad?
intelligence agents would love to know.
It is an ad. People wonder why I skip ads when I'm watching other people's content. It's because there's contracts involved and stuff like that. So you got to be very careful. A lot of people don't like it when I do that. But unfortunately, again, like Chris has obviously signed paperwork to do this and I haven't. So you got to be very careful.
Neither should you guys. Diego Garcia has been called America's unsinkable aircraft carrier, but in many ways I think it's actually better than that. Because the dry horseshoe-shaped 14 miles long by 4 miles wide island is big enough for a giant 12,000-foot-long runway,
Ooh.
capable of launching heavy strategic bombers, unlike your carriers. It's also
Isn't Diego Garcia owned by the British? Let me do some Googling. Let me just do a cheeky Google. Diego Garcia military base. Do you know what? I'll have literally the best source for this? Wikipedia. It's been used as a joint UK-US base since the 1970s. Congo Islands have been British overseas territory, but in October, the UK engaged in discussions with whoever that is, with a view to transfer sovereignty of the island while allowing the military base to remain under the 99-year lease pending the treaty. So the British own it, but the US, we're busy friends, aren't we? We like to have sleepovers. That's the truth of it. Is we're best friends and we like to have sleepovers together. So, Yeah.
Also a beautiful exotic place to be stationed, unlike your carriers. It's true that the US has already a bunch more closer air bases in the Middle East, but that would require pesky things like authorization and permission from the government in each area. Just like your carriers, though, that operate in the legal, dubious, free-for-all international waters, missions out of Diego Garcia are under full US control, which is something that resonates with every high-ranking control freak of a general. However, it costs thousands of dollars to support these bombers each day when they're far away from their home base in Missouri. In return, the benefit from a military point of view is that it's less than half the journey to their targets, which allows these pilots to run multiple missions in a shorter time frame.
Yeah, it's obviously a very well-placed strategic location, isn't it? Let's be honest. Like, you're not going to get a place any better than that, really, are you? Like, I'm trying to think of anywhere you could probably go. Could you go to? No, you couldn't go to Sweden with their new implementation with NATO. It's still not a better strategic place. Like, there's not anywhere further east really that you could go, and that, especially considering God, there's loads of places you can get to from Diego Garcia, really, couldn't you? So yeah, there's not a better place, really. Your other option is an aircraft carrier.
What we're talking about is something coordinated by what's called the Air Tasking Order. The Air Tasking Order is a massive document that lists all air sorties that take place in the first 24 hours of a war. It matches each pilot to a priority target. It's like a pilot's to-do list, but for war. But I'm just a grunt of a ground pounder. To learn how this really works, I spoke with former Top Gun instructor and U.S. Navy F-18 fighter pilot Vincent callsign Jello from Fighter Pilot Pod.
Top Gun, is that the original Top Gun? Is that who he is? Is he the original Maverick?
Podcast. He's flown from aircraft carriers on combat missions over Iraq, so he's an expert. Something I've been learning about is the Air Tasking Order. I'm wondering, is that something that you guys actually get?
Yes, the Air Tasking Order is the air shop's way of making their plan known to everyone in theater who is.
Is this who Tom Cruise is based on? Is this the original Tom Cruise? Is he also part of Scientology?
Participating. I'm told in Desert Storm, the Air Tasking Order was as big as a New York Yellow Pages phone book, and every flight is in there. You'll have overall tasking, specific tasking. You'll have weapons, loadouts.
I printed an example of an Air Tasking Order right here, actually. Why is my printer always low on ink? What the actual
I swear to God, I just bought a brand new... Is it HP as well? It's fucking HP as well. I've got a printer, a HP printer, and it is shit. I swear to God, it gave me some sort of error. I literally bought it like 2 weeks ago, and it's giving me an error saying something about the printing head. What is it with printers just being shit? What? Why? Chris, I understand. I understand the frustration.
Over. This is the brains of the operation. The rundown includes call signs, aircraft types, payloads, and mission coordination. Let's look at the key targets that American pilots are briefed on in this air tasking order. Iran has 5 nuclear facilities. Their locations are publicly known, and they're marked on this map that you're looking at in blue. These sites are distributed across 500 miles in almost a straight line that runs directly north to south from the capital of Tehran to the port city of bu-Shahre. This air campaign would need to hit all of these nuclear sites in order to be successful. And on top of that, Iran has 3 nuclear research centers marked on the map in green and 3 uranium mines marked in red. Each of these have deep underground facilities.
I don't see the uranium.
Some places stretch 300 feet deep with 40 feet of reinforced concrete. And if I highlight the air...
40 foot, yeah, but the US has the missiles that can go like through 60 foot of concrete, right? So 40 foot is, you know, is still within the boundaries of what the US could destroy if they really wanted to.
Tasking order on camera right now with my highlighter, it'll seem more like I know what I'm talking about. And if I color code the highlighting, I'll be self-reporting on my TISM. Highest priority for the attacks are the uranium enrichment sites, which is the real engine driving Iran's nuclear program.
Oh my
Their
days.
2 biggest enrichment sites are located at Natanz and Fordo. Each of these have deep underground facilities that stretch 300 feet deep in some cases,
Okay.
with 40 feet of reinforced concrete. Each of these are protected by some of Iran's best air defense systems as well, which we'll get into later in more detail. What would you have to consider when it comes to suppression of enemy air defense missions in an environment like Iran, for instance?
The two biggest things you have to consider are the mission objectives and the level of risk. That is, what is it you want me to achieve and how badly? Because if it is taking out the entire defensive network and I better die trying, then that affects my mission planning versus, hey, to see if you can give them a bruise and don't get anyone killed.
But you'll notice some of the most important aspects of the air tasking order is choosing the correct strike package. This will be key to the mission's success. In this scenario, crews load up 3 of the B-2 bombers with a payload of 2 of the GBU-57 bunker busters each. Each of those roughly cost about $3 million. The second team of 3 stealth bombers,
Roughly $3 million each. Christ almighty. The amount of money the US military industrial complex has is just insane. It's insane the amount of money, isn't it? It blows my mind. I was in the store the other day and I was looking at, what was I looking at? I was looking at drinks. I just came back from a stag do. And I'm looking at energy drinks and I'm thinking I want a healthy energy drink. And I'm looking at the prices between like £2 and £3 or £4. And I'm like, which one should I get? Meanwhile, they're like, here's $3 million for a missile. Here's another $3 million for a missile. Here's me like £2 or £4. What should I spend my money on? The money is insane.
are loaded with 80 of the JDAM 500-pound GBU-38s each. This is a typical combat payload, and this gives the fleet a combined payload of 246 munitions, weighing roughly 200,000 pounds and millions of dollars worth of American explosives just for the first wave of the attack. The bombers take off from Diego Garcia at 1800 hours and fly about 5 hours to their targets, where they'll arrive under the cover.
5-hour flight. Mate, a 5-hour flight? That's a long flight just to get there. They're going to do the mission and come back. 5 hours? Mate, I hope they brought something downloaded on Netflix on the phone or something, because that's a flight, that, innit? They're on autopilot. Can they just put it on autopilot and just vibe? What happens if they need to take a shit? What happens if they need to go take a shit? What do they do then? Do they just bag it up? Are they just sweating balls in the cockpit? It's got AC. 5 hours? That's insane. We should watch a video on the inside of a B-2 bomber and what it's like to actually live inside of one for 5 hours.
Cover of darkness at 2300 hours. The whole way that they're flying there, they're pounding coffee just to stay alert for the 10-hour long mission, and not the type of coffee they gave us in the Army either. No, this is the Primo Air Force B-2 brand. Good stuff. The first team drops the bunker busters on the 2 underground nuclear sites at Natanz and Fordo. B-2 pilot Mickelson gave a rare interview about its targeting system to give us insight into this, and he said, quote, "The synthetic aperture radar provides the pilots with a realistic display of the ground that they're able to use for targeting. What this means is that the 2 crews look at a glass cockpit that digitally displays a picture of the ground below for accurate targeting." The B-2...
The tech in these B-2 bombers is unreal, isn't it? It's insane. This technology in these bombers that wouldn't even be known to civvies for another 10, 20 years.
Stealth bomber is the only aircraft in the entire fleet certified to drop that GBU-57 with a hog of a 30,000-pound bomb. It's like dropping 3 elephants made out of 80% metal and 20% explosives on the enemy. It can cut through at least 200 feet of earth. These are giant shovels.
200 feet of earth. 200. My God. My God. You ain't hiding. Where are you going to hide? They haven't got a base that's 201 feet down, have they? Where are you going to hide?
Flying at terminal velocity. But you guys, we're forgetting something. Mission planners need to keep in mind that it's not an infinity stockpile of these GBU-57s sitting around. By looking at past Air Force contracts, I was able to estimate that there are in the ballpark of between 20 and 30 of the GBU-57s produced in total. What that means is that taking out Iranian nuclear sites could cost half of America's arsenal of massive bunker busters, which already had Xi Jinping's name written all over them. The second team of bombers dropped their precision GBU-38 JDAMs on targets that are less dug in, like your research facilities and supply centers for nuclear material. Because while all of this is happening, U.S. forces would move their aircraft carrier piece in for the attack. The USS Truman, currently located...
That's a true to scale size of how big that aircraft carrier is.
...would move their aircraft carrier...
That's how big it is in real life compared to Saudi Arabia. It is massive.
...piece in for the attack. The USS Truman, currently located west of Iran in the Red Sea, is loaded with over 60 fighters. They launched a squadron of F-18 and F-35 stealth fighters loaded with long-range standoff AGM-154 missiles that I wouldn't want to be on the business end of. Their mission is to suppress Iran's hundreds of ground-based air defense systems to open up a corridor for the second wave of attacks. But these carriers would be within range and would be a target for Iran's ballistic missiles.
Depending on what we assess Iran to have for anti-shipping, it could be something where we can afford to get closer if all they have are basic aircraft, or if they have long-distance, high-speed, sea-skimming anti-ship missiles, then our standoff might have to be greater in order to protect those very valuable capital assets.
It makes you wonder whether they'd even do this or whether they'd rather put boots on the ground. Whether they'd rather just go in and do it and clear it out themselves. It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Like what the preference... I mean, the preference would be this, but it does make you wonder because it's not been the first time that, you know, US troops have gone in somewhere to prevent weapons of mass destruction, is it?
Another reason we know what this would look like is because in mid-April 2025, the US Air Force released interviews with the fighter pilots who defended against the Iranian ballistic missile attack against Israel in 2024. One pilot said the radar just lit up, and at that point, we were in an hours-long fight, just trying to destroy whatever we could.
Wow.
The radar identifies another one and another one, all attacking drones. Squadron Commander Lieutenant Colonel Murphy said, "It took about 45 minutes to fire all the missiles we had before we had to return after running out of ammunition. Interceptors wouldn't be able to shoot all munitions down themselves, though, and in early April 2025, we got reports that I observed of an entire U.S. Army Patriot Air Defense Battalion being moved from the Pacific to the Middle East. That's around 1,000 soldiers and tons of equipment, not a small undertaking at all, costing millions of dollars to pull off. Imagine one day you're sitting chilling on an island in the Pacific, waiting to shoot down from China, and then the next day you're sitting in the desert, waiting to shoot down from Iran. Because according to the head of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, it took over 70 flights from C-17s to accomplish this gigantic airlift.
70 flights? My days. It just shows the scale of the US military, though, and what they're capable of, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Like, it's so impressive.
They moved 32 Patriot interceptors into place. You guys, what I'm trying to say is the US military has spent an enormous amount of money to signal to Iran that they're serious about going through with this operation. These air defense assets on the ground would be augmented by aircraft carriers launching electronic warfare planes to attack Iran's air defense radars. This would shut them down and blind them for a brief
This exact area is where I was when I was on ship, by the way. The exact area.
Window with a blast of interference. This jams the communications of Iran's leadership. Flying alongside them is what's called a Combat Air Patrol, the CAP, which is made up of F-22s, F-15EXs, and their job is to protect bombers and intercept retaliatory missiles midair. Welcome to your almost credible defense briefing on Iran's capability to intercept American fighter jets with their air superiority fighters. Iran has an estimated...
I love just how many shadows are on this. I see he's still got the whole budget that he had Task and Purpose. Do you know what, though? I prefer it. I really do.
40 of the old F-14s, 30 of the MiG-29s, as well as a bunch of Su-24s. These are all 1960s and 1970s era outdated jets. And in reality, about half of these fighters are going to be fully operational due to the fact that maintaining aircraft is an absolute nightmare. Should Iran choose to even scramble their jets, these MiGs are going to be armed with the old R-27 missile that has a max range of about 80 kilometers. Not the top of the line stuff, but it's still a threat in the same way that someone swinging their fists around in the room long enough might connect with your jaw. Are you taking off with a mix of air-to-air missiles and air to ground, or are you taking off? Is the payload on your aircraft very specifically planned out?
And you tell me, hey, Jello, I need you to go attack this thing. And I've done my weaponeering, so I know what kinds of weapons I need and how many and what impact angle and speed. Well, then I know that I can launch with that for where we are, the temperature, the winds we can expect on the aircraft carrier, that I can take off with that munition.
This coordination of this entire air battle is done by the Joint Force Air Component Commander, who's responsible for creating that air tasking order with his battle staff. And the command and control is done by CENTCOM's Air Operations Center, which is located in Qatar. The big picture doctrine that the U.S. Air Force uses is centralized.
How many fucking screens are there? My days. Guarantee 90% of them are just playing solitaire. Yeah. This dude back here, you see him at the very top? Screens aren't facing anyone. Mate, he's got double screen solitaire. That's what he's doing right there. Look at that. He's locked in at solitaire.
Control, but decentralized execution. So a lot of authority is given to pilots on how they want to execute the mission. I was going to show you my work on this part, but then my printer had to die on me. It's 2025. How can we not get a printer to work, but we can send missiles thousands of miles across the earth? What the fuck over? Meanwhile, the two carrier strike groups have at least one submarine alongside with them that are armed with dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles, vertical launch cells, and these precision weapons. The 8 Arleigh Burke destroyers spread out between the two groups provide an air defense radar coverage for the carriers. They act as a kind of coordinated, sort of interlocking web of missile defense. Once Iran's...
It's kind of like an Iron Dome just for an aircraft carrier, which is insane because the amount of actual firepower that an aircraft carrier has alone, it's just because the asset's worth so much. That's what it is. But an aircraft carrier alone is like insane for firepower anyway.
Air defense is knocked out, assuming it is, it would pave the way for some of America's less stealthy jets to target the entrances to the nuclear facilities, blowing up exposed air vents and collapsing the tunnels.
Oh my God, it would just be a bloodbath, wouldn't it? It'd be an absolute bloodbath.
And that leads us to the next step. It requires that we look over here at the UK's RAF Fairford base. In February, American B-52s used Fairford base as a launching pad to fly a show of force mission right next to Iran's border across the Middle East. These slower flying, more vulnerable heavy bombers would be free to operate once Iran's air defense was reduced. In our scenario, they each drop about 70,000 pounds of ordnance over these nuclear sites. That's a combined 140,000 on top of the already 200,000 just straight donated to their nuclear program.
Also, just get rid of a whole frigging country. The amount of payload, that is insane, isn't it? Like, imagine telling someone from World War II that. They'd be like, what are you taking out? Christ.
Imagine right now there's someone out there watching this who helped plan the Iraq war saying, wait a second, we could have just sent bombers instead? We have to look at Iran's air defense network to understand the challenge that U.S. pilots are up against. We actually have a pretty good idea of where Iran's EW radars and air defense network are deployed along the western border with Iraq to stop Israeli jets, and then as well on the southern border watching the water route to stop American B-2 bombers from Diego Garcia. Added together, we know that Iran has several hundred launchers of different varieties from your S-300 to your Tor-1. However, their ability to intercept American stealth fighters is a whole nother story. One major part of the equation that has changed since the Gulf War and Iraq is the sophistication of Iran's missiles. They're more accurate and have greater max range than in past decades.
Is it still Russia that's providing Iran with the missiles? Are they making them domestically? That's something I'm interested in, because for the longest time, Russia have been like giving them weapons, right? For a long time. But at the same time, Russia needs all the weapons they need right now, don't they? Let's be honest. So it does make me wonder, are they making them domestically? They must be at this point.
What this means is, for the first time in history, the American bombers at Diego Garcia may actually face danger. This month, Iran threatened to attack Diego Garcia in a preemptive strike.
Whoa, really?
Preemptive strikes are supposed to be our thing. Most analysts agree Iranian missiles have a max range capped off at 2,000 kilometers, and even if they modified them to push them out to 3,000 kilometers, the accuracy at that distance would make it tough for them to hit Diego Garcia. Now, Iran's newest Shahed drone, the 136B, does have a range of 4,000 kilometers, sure, and it could actually hit the B-2 bombers at the Diego Garcia base, but people forget how slow those travel. It would take...
There's no way they would do that. Could you imagine? There's no way they'd do it. They would not do it. Imagine if they tried to bomb Diego Garcia. My God, the wrath that would come down. It wouldn't happen.
A literal 24 hours for them to reach the base, during which time America would intercept the awkwardly slow-flying drones. But that doesn't mean it's not a threat. A lucky hit would end up in a literal $2 billion B-2 bomber write-off for our government. American intelligence assessments have warned of preemptive Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear program. Then the Trump administration threatened there would be a coordinated bombing campaign if negotiations are unproductive within 2 months. So couple all of those quotes and information with the fact that the balance of power that I've seen in the region has shifted, I think, not in Iran's favor. Iran has seen their strongest allies get weakened. Assad was overthrown in Syria. Hezbollah's leadership was beeper bombed. Hamas's fighting capability was greatly reduced.
Yeah.
The United States sees this moment in history, I think, as a window of opportunity where Iran...
Well, we know that the talks are still taking place. I think there's like 6 days of talks that have happened so far. And the next talk that they're having between the US and Iran about this is in Rome, I'm pretty sure. And I don't think that has taken place yet. I think it got postponed. We talked about that in a previous video last week. I think it's been postponed for like a week or two. I think they'll come to some sort of conclusion because Iran, although they have a big mouth, they can't back it up and they know they'd get absolutely obliterated by the US. So it feels like I feel positive that this isn't going to end in war.
Has the least amount of leverage we've seen them have at any other point in over a decade now. But why might the United States act now? In part because of what's called breakout time. For years now, we've been hearing how Iran is only months away from a nuclear weapon. Then people get confused when you see a few months go by and Iran has no nuclear weapon. Seems like some generals are crying wolf. But they forgot to mention that Iran is only a few months away from a nuclear weapon if they actively choose to develop one.
Yeah.
So far, they haven't chosen to develop one. Part of the reason we know this is because UN weapons inspectors are still allowed in Iran to verify this information. Researchers like Justin Bronk at the Royal United Services Institute.
Yeah, but do we think that they're showing us everything? Do you think they're showing the UN everything? Because they're probably not showing the UN everything.
Believe a US bombing campaign would have its limits. He said, quote, ultimately, short of regime change or occupation, it's pretty difficult to see how military strikes could destroy Iran's path to a nuclear weapon.
Wow.
It would be a case of essentially trying to impose a measure of military deterrence, impose cost, and push back breakout times back to where they were a few years ago. These airstrikes would damage their sites and make the breakout time longer. But full-blown regime...
But ultimately, they'd still be able to do it. They'd still have the research and all that. Like, they'd still be able to manage it some way. It's tricky. I think what would happen is, if it did kick off, I think it'd be more boots on the ground than anything.
Change in Iran is likely not an option being suggested by the United States. Even if they desired to do an invasion, it would be physically unlikely due to the lack of locations from where a large American conventional ground assault could take place from.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever stopped them, though. That's it. Let's be honest.
None of the countries surrounding Iran would allow it. It'd be extremely unpopular with the American people.
It would.
An air campaign would be capable of destroying Iran's nuclear sites, sure, but this would not be a permanent solution. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
Yep.
Is that a racist analogy to use at this? This is why hopefully the
I don't
final
think so.
method to end any potential of Iran weaponizing a nuclear program is the one that is hopefully used, and that's the diplomatic one. The United States government uses their economic leverage as a method to gain concessions from Iran. But the major question here is, will Iran make concessions and stop enriching past roughly 4% in exchange for sanctions relief?
I do think it'll die down. I really do. I think it's inevitable that it will. I think it's just a case of coming to some sort of an agreement, and Iran probably backing down behind closed doors and kind of lessening their ego behind closed doors where people can't publicly see it. Does that make sense?
The threat of a credible U.S. military response is one of the main pieces of leverage the United States has. The doubling down on the development of a nuclear weapon is one of the main pieces of leverage Iran has.
Yeah.
It's my hope that a peaceful diplomatic solution is reached, but so far, we've yet to see either side buckle. And
We're going to see what happens in the next week or two if they conclude these talks, though. I think that's what's probably the most important thing.
what that means is we might see this war plan put into action.
Yeah.
For more content, you can go to our Patreon. There's a link in the description. A couple of videos are up there already to support true independent journalism, or you can sign up for Pepperbox to get my exclusive weekly combat footage analysis show. I'm your everyday infantryman, Chris Cappy, ending transmission now.
I love it. I love it. That's his first proper video that I've seen on the subject matter, and it is outstanding. So well done, Chris, for putting together a really, really good video. You should be incredibly proud of yourself and your abilities. But yeah, really good video. I think this is just another reiteration about what's going on out there. It's just complex, it's ridiculous and scary, but also I don't think much is going to come of it. Iran's always been giving it the talk, haven't they? So I think we're going to be in a good place. But I'll leave a link down below to Cappy Army. Make sure you go over there, give it some love. It's really important that you do that. Check out Chug, 10% off link down below, and check out my new business, Morale. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.